Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is that you are joining us from. Hello, how are you? I'm so glad you're with us today. I'm thrilled, delighted, and excited. Please say hello and let me know where you're from and tell me what's the weather like where you are? Here in Detroit, I always like to find out where the weather is across the world. Weather is the climate is such a conversation thing today. Here in Detroit, oh my goodness, in the middle of March, it's going to be in the 70s today. Oh, who would have thunk it? So, what's it like where you are? I'm so delighted that you're here, especially during this time, because as you know, we're celebrating Women's History Month. And I'm just really glad that this is a time that we can celebrate and rejoice. And so, welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for leaving your comments and conversation. And don't forget to say hello. Well, I want you to, for a moment, imagine a world where your name alone invokes a powerful sense of who you are, what you stand for, and the incredible mark you've left on society. Now, in a world where clicks and likes often reign supreme, it's easy to forget the true power of a purposeful personal brand. But if you could craft a brand that not only captivates in the present, the here and now, but also echoes through the ages, wouldn't that be cool? Maya Angelou, Mother Teresa, Ellen Ochoa, Oprah Winfrey, Eleanor Roosevelt, Rosa Parks. When we hear their names, we recall how extraordinary they've been, their accomplishments, the essence of who they were, and the enduring impact of their contributions to society. Their personal brands, authentically lived, are inextricably. Now, see, I didn't know if I was going to put that word in my comments because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get it all out. But you know what I'm saying when I say that impossible to untangle their personal brands from their legacies because they're so aligned, so linked. And these women, along with hundreds and thousands of others who we remember during this month of celebrating women, these women resonate with us on a profound level, serving as a testament to the power of aligning one's values and actions in the way one presents yourself to the world. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Dr. Geneva, leadership expert and award winning nonprofit leader on a mission to empower people to lead with greater impact. And one of the things I know for sure in today's digital world, where our online presence is often as influential as our real world interactions, personal branding has become an indispensable tool for shaping our legacies. And so it's about the stories we choose to share, as well as the values we embody and the way we engage with people. So today, we're going to explore the intimate connection, there's a link, between personal branding and legacy, and offer you some actionable strategies to help you cultivate a brand that not only moves your career forward, but also lays that foundation for a legacy that will inspire generations to come. And to join us in this fascinating, wonderful conversation, I want to invite a friend, a mentor, uh, Shanee Moret. And I know you all know her, probably most of her, Most of you know her. She has over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. She's a personal brand strategist, and she has over 300,000 subscribers to a newsletter where she drops pearls of wisdom all the time. And so I want to welcome to the show Shanee. Say hello to everyone. And I'm so glad you're here,
Hey,
my friend, my mentor.
hey, Dr. Geneva. I'm glad to be here. I can't believe this is the first time we're doing this on your platform.
It is, and I'm excited. And, I'm still working with all the technology, but I'm handling it. And I want to say good morning to everyone who's come in and said hello, and thank you so much. Yes, and we're going to dive right into it. And so, Shanee, I wanted to start off first with a question that I often get from the women in particular that I worked about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And that question is about, well, if you craft a personal brand and you're intentional about doing that, isn't that inherently unauthentic? You ain't being real if you take the time to craft something like that. What's your take on that? Can a strategic brand still lead to a genuine legacy, or is there some kind of inherent contradiction?
Yeah, so I think it's both. And I think that humans tend to talk about things like black and white. And I think that when you need a strategy. Number one, the strategy is more to resonate with your audience. Number two, I don't think that there's a list of qualities or traits that make someone authentic. It's really about bringing your authenticity in the moment. So, for example, if you're not having the best day, are you going to express that in a video?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that if you're a little irritated that day, that you're always someone who's irritated. So I think it's overall, the strategy encompasses the big picture. And then in moments, it's really a personal choice to choose. Am I going to share this? Is it relevant to my audience? And I think that's the difference, is choosing the things that are, yes, authentic, but are most relevant and helpful for your audience, because people have enough problems of their own.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And one of the things that I picked up in what you're talking about is that our brand is really our story, is it
Yeah.
not? And so it's like, well,
I
what
see it
story
as
are we going to
being
choose to
alive.
tell?
Yeah, I don't see it as a static thing. I see it as being alive. I see it as evolving every single day, just like you probably are. And it's just an expression of where you are currently in your life over and over and over again. But the real strategy is choosing the things that are most relevant and helpful for your audience. And that's where a lot of people don't really have that discernment.
Tell me a little more about that when you talk about strategy, and oftentimes folk aren't, focused on that or understand that or know that.
Yeah, so most of the times when people are going through an exercise of building their personal brand, they're only focused on them, when the main focus should be who they're serving. And then from who they're serving, deciding what are the stories, what are the experiences, what are the qualities, what are the skills, what are the pieces of information that I could share with this audience that is helpful, recent, relevant to them. If you only build a personal brand based on looking at you and what you want, that usually doesn't tend to go very well.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent point. I mean, just terrific insight, because I would think most of us, when we're thinking about, well, what's our brand? We immediately think of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's about me. But what you're saying is that when you start off with the lens of others first, that's going to make a difference. And as you know, when I started the show, I talked about Rosa Parks and Eleanor Roosevelt and just Oprah Winfrey, mentioning those names, their images. You know, we all think about something when we hear those names. And all of those individuals were serving others. We think about what contribution they made.
Yeah, and I think that there's this idea that you could do this brand exercise and just build this brand with intentionality. And for some people that may be true, but even the examples that you just mentioned, and I personally experienced this too. I just started and my brand, the people almost decided what my brand was and what I stood for in my messages, and the market decides. So I think that those type of exercises really are more relevant when maybe you're starting to have a team, or maybe you've gotten to a certain size that now you have to definitely be more intentional about what you post, what you say, because it has that impact. But I think in the beginning, it's almost like being an artist. You could experiment and express yourself in various ways and just see what gravitates with people, and almost like the people decide what your brand is.
Interesting. Almost the people decide what your brand is. That's some real insight there. Okay. All right, that's a good one. So let me also kind of following up on that, you know, and particularly for women, as we go about our careers, our lives, as we're on these platforms, as we think about women in history, oftentimes legacies are shaped by others, what others think, others' perceptions. And so, how can especially women leaders in this Women History Month that we're talking about, especially, how can women leaders harness the power that you talked about of their story, of their personal brand, to really rewrite the narrative and take control of their own stories?
Yeah. I feel like sometimes people can think of personal brand and get overwhelmed, but think of it like a Lego set that is a million pieces that you have to put together, but each piece is just day by day. Like the brand that I've built in the last 4 years, it was just day by day, posting day by day. And so I think where a lot of people get stuck is they overthink how they're going to start, especially in the first 90 days. And then there's almost like this resistance sometimes to, oh, I'm making this change in my life, but what if my audience doesn't like that? But if that's part of your evolution, that's where the authenticity piece comes in. You will have to go in that direction and see who stays with you, see what how your audience takes that, what's the best way to make that transition for your audience. But it's really something that's fluid, I think. And I think that it's just about starting and looking at almost your brand in like 90-day evolutions. That's and it's just like a baby turning into a toddler, turning into a child, turning into a teenager. So that's the way I see it, because it almost unfolds right before you as you grow as a person. Like I'm not the same person today I was 4 years ago. I've grown because of business skills, all the skills with social media in every single way. And I could have never fathomed where I am today 4 years ago. So it was just focusing day to day, 90 days to 90 days.
Yeah, now that 90-day window, that's interesting. You know, your insight about as we evolve and go through transitions and life stages, then our brand does too, and we should be adjusting our brand accordingly. Is that what you're saying? And we don't have to be stuck in
No,
one way or another.
I don't think humans are meant for that. I think even on a day to day, I mean, when we could really get into the minutia, but people build these avatar things. They're like, this is who my avatar is. And usually the avatar is built through the lens of that person when they buy the offer. But I'm like 10 people in one day. So last night Liv was in, I was in mom mode. Liv was sick.
Uh-huh.
Take her to
Okay.
the ER, right? Now
Uh-huh.
I'm in interview mode, creator
Mhm.
mode.
Yes.
Later I'll be in coach mode with one-on-one sessions. So like we all have these modes. And the
Mhm.
real question is, who is your audience just in one day? They're probably in 10 different roles and modes, and how can you resonate with them through all of those modes, not just
Mhm.
by your offer?
Mhm. And so is the idea, since you're, relating, you're switching different hats and roles, and you're resonating and with different audiences, is the idea that you find some common themes
Yes.
and in terms of your story that you would relate and be consistent with in terms of your brand.
Yeah, yes, and I think this is imperative for women
Okay.
because we tend to just wear more hats, especially if you're in
Absolutely.
America. So you may be the person that is one of the breadwinners at this point, or the main breadwinner. Then when you get on your Peloton, you're taking care of yourself. Then you go to mom mode. Then maybe cooking mode. Then if you don't have a cleaner, cleaning mode. Then back to business mode. Then maybe caretaker mode for your parents. So sharing those things allows other women who are experiencing those things to be attracted to you and to join your community, to follow your content. And even if they never like buy your program or do the coaching with you, they can refer people that will. And
Mhm.
for me, it's just about that emotional attraction to the right community.
Mhm. Mhm. And that would fit so well, particularly with women who are in leadership roles, because we
Exactly.
do have so many hats and we juggle so many things. If you are just joining us to listen and watch in this conversation, I'm here with Shanee. We're talking about brand, your personal brand, but not just a brand for your career development, which is important. Your career profile, your business, but also how do you, make sure that your brand leaves a legacy, that it continues on, that it has some impact. So, Shanae, continuing the conversation about, we're in this age of social media, and everything we post, everything we tweet, no matter what we do, it's that digital footprint is there like forever.
Hmm.
And so, it's kind of scary when you think about it. Whatever you say or do is going to be in the internet, because the internet never forgets. Now, you've been online and you've mastered your online presence. So, how do you balance that? The internet, your whatever you do is going to be there forever, with trying to intentionally craft a personal brand. Like if you made mistakes in the past, because the internet never forgets, how do you go about crafting something that can stand the test of time and be really valuable and show you as a contributing person in society?
Um, so I guess it depends on the situation. For me, it's just who I am. Like when people meet me in person, it's 99.9% the same as how they probably experienced me online. So
Mhm.
I just feel like I'm just being who I am in that moment. Um, there have been a few clients that have come to me maybe with some not illegal things in their past, but things that they may not be the proudest of in their past. And usually the best thing to do is to just tell the truth and to move forward. And behavior, the best way I could put it is behavior is a language. So it's less about saying, hey, I'm going to change, and more about, okay, let me give them 100 times more evidence that I have these characteristics or I'm this type of person versus that one mistake that may have been committed 10 years ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and yeah, does that mean that we still need to keep working on it? I mean, that gets back to kind of what you were
Yes.
talking about before, this like every 90-day relook.
Oh, 100%. And I smiled when you said you mastered your brand, because I feel like I'm a baby. Like I'm just learning. Because, really the best way I could explain it is, if you don't love this process of expression and just getting better at communication at scale on social, then you will hate this journey. It will be treacherous for you because it never ends. And so for me, week after week, month after month, I'm just looking at how can we progress? How can I get better in the way that I communicate? How can we resonate with our audience better? How can I understand my audience better? And that progress for me is the only goal.
Yeah, this question is popping up again in terms of, how do we stay consistent when we wear so many hats? Do we always stay on our values and truths? And I think what you were saying was a couple of things. One, yes, our values are important in who we are, and trying to be the best that we can be, showing up as who we are, is like numero uno. And also recognizing that we wear many hats and we go through many stages and development. So if we're showing up as mom, or as a career woman, or as an author, as we show up as different people, that really is who we are.
It is.
If we're being true to our values and who we are.
Exactly. And then you'll probably attract moms, people who are authors, or people that really admire authors, and you'll just attract people like you. And then it'll just increase the probability of you building a community and resonating with them. So that's just really what it is about. And when you share something, people don't even realize what could happen. So when you share something like my friend Kizzy, when she started YouTube, when she just started sharing that journey and I started seeing her grow on YouTube, you don't know who you will inspire. That's when I was like, oh, I'm going to start YouTube. Right. And then now we're on this journey, and, we're growing on YouTube. And probably this year, 25% of our clients have come inbound from YouTube, and it's still a small channel, which is, to me, like, almost unbelievable. But that would have never happened had I just not seen her doing the thing. So I think sometimes, like, we put a lot of emphasis of being in our heads and like strategizing.
Yes.
And thinking about it. And I've heard Tony Robbins say, if you stay in your head, you're dead. So a lot of people overthink because they want to show up perfect. But if you just start to do probably 90% and strategize 10%, the chances of you impacting people will probably skyrocket. And we really undervalue that learning, by the way. We undervalue how much we actually learn just by watching other people do the thing. And this is where I'm passionate about not just women being more intentional about building their brand and showing up for other women, but women who are minorities. How many influencers are women of color just across all social media platforms? Not many, right? Like I can probably think of like 10 on just the top of my mind across like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. And if we don't start to show up more, then who are we going to inspire? How are we going to inspire the future generations that look like us to show up more? And I think that I hold that responsibility very seriously. I try to show up for women, and not just in English soon, but I'll be showing up in Spanish. I'm bilingual. I'm Cuban and Puerto Rican. So I think that that's a huge responsibility, and it allows me to think less of, oh, what do I want? And like, what do I need to do for women, for future generations? And I think that that's how I think of it.
And as you're talking about that, I see it in your story and what you do. The first part of your conversation was about go out there and do it, and just do it and learn from that. And then as you were talking about that, you brought in why you do it and what you value and what's important and the kind of impact you want to have. And I just think those words that you gave us, that insight, is the basics of this conversation today and why I wanted to have it, because there is this link between the stories we tell, our brand that we have, and the impact that we want to create, the legacy we want to leave. And we need to do some things, like you said, let's not overthink it. Okay. But let's be clear on our values and what's important and how we want to tell our stories. So I appreciate that insight.
Yeah, and that purpose has changed for me. In the beginning, I just wanted to get enough clients to freelance, right? Or do some freelance marketing from home and be able to be home with my daughter. Once that was sustained, then it turned into a business. Once I understood this game of business, so to speak, and now we're building a team, now the vision and the purpose and my purpose for doing this just becomes different and bigger. And so I think that, like, you don't have to start with this grand vision. Sometimes that grand vision happens like a few years into the process. And I think that that's fine too.
Now, that's another interesting point. You don't have to start with the grand vision.
Yeah, I didn't start with the grand vision. I started with a small one.
Yes. And so thank you, Erin. Erin's making a comment about the remark that you made about representation. And again, one of the things I love about Women's History Month is that it causes us to stop and think and focus on women and their contributions. And that's good. But every day, all year round, we need to be lifting up women and thinking about the impact we can have and how important representation is and being out there. And, I do want to ask you if you would, there's so much insight that you've given already. Would you just focus on perhaps 2 or 3 actionable strategies that folk, particularly women who are listening now, could use to implement their personal brand and still contribute to the legacy that they want to live? Give us some strategies.
So my answer is going to be, the first thing you do is to post 1 video a day on LinkedIn for 30 days. What this will do, it's a great question. What this will do is it will help you become more comfortable on camera. Why is that important? A lot of the professionals who are women that I come across, they have a tendency, myself included, right, to want to do TEDx talks, to want to do, presentations on a stage, webinars, masterclasses, courses down the road, maybe YouTube, maybe long form video, maybe live. A lot of that is video based. So in those first 30 days, it's really building the skill set of video. And also, I don't want to say like beating out of yourself, but like beating perfectionism out of yourself, where
Okay.
it's okay if it's not 100% perfect. What you're doing is you're just getting seen. And and that in and of itself could be talked about for 30 minutes, because a lot of us when we were growing up, uh in Spanish it's like calladita se ve más bonita, right? Which is like, uh you're more beautiful when you're quiet.
Mhm.
As And a lot of
Mm.
young girls, just even in America growing up, were, oh, basically, you know, be on the low,
Right.
be
Nice, be
nice,
quiet, sit in
yeah,
the
be quiet.
corner, listen.
Yeah. So there's when I work with clients, I mean, most of my clients are 50s, in their 50s, and they
Mhm,
have to get used to getting seen and
mhm,
expressing themselves, because they may have never had the liberty to do so, or really have the muscles to do so. Um, and especially in a way that's on their terms and at that consistency. So I think
mhm,
that that's very important. The second thing would then be to, for the following 30 days, I would incorporate some newsletters. And what newsletters will allow you to do on LinkedIn is to get used to getting in people's inboxes. And why is that important? Because if you want to build an online business at any given point, or even if you're in a corporate leadership role and maybe you have want to launch a paid newsletter or a community or whatever, host events, at some point you're probably going to need to associate yourself with building an email list and emailing people.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so I think that that builds the skill of just, okay, now I'm not just seen on video, but now I'm entering people's inboxes. And LinkedIn allows you to do this without paying for an additional software, without you having to build an additional list. It just goes off of your followers. So it's the simplest thing. And then the third set of 30 days, so now we're in days 60 to 90, I would then add live video. And
Okay.
goes back to presentations. Just being live video on LinkedIn is probably the biggest cheat code. People within your network will reach out to you, maybe refer to you, offer you opportunities. You'll get podcast invites, speaking invites, because the liability of inviting you to a conference or a speaking event or podcast is reduced because they see how you perform live. And if you only want that in and of itself, it's still worth it. So, let
Mhm,
alone clients and all of that. But that's the three actionable things that I would do.
mhm. Fantastic. I mean, do a video, pre-recorded, get in front of the camera, just do it yourself, and just be you, practice, because that builds the muscle.
Hmm.
Practice newsletters, particularly, on LinkedIn are really great. And then that live video coming to folk like we're doing now, live and raw and in living color that we are, both of us. And then I want to also, I really love your advice, those strategies, because they're really applicable across the board for those of folk who are listening and are want to try this on other platforms. You can do the same thing because the
Exactly.
concepts are still are the same. That do something live, no matter what platform you are. Get in the habit of writing, of expressing yourself in a written form. So, newsletter, email, what have you, wherever you are, and go for those opportunities where you can be in front of audiences, be at the podium, be on a platform where, in fact, you can express yourself and put your thing out there. So, I love those strategies, and all of them say you got to practice, you got to
Right.
build the muscle, and it can be real scary sometimes. I know, every time I'm gonna tell you, Shanee, because all of you who are listening and joining with us, and anyone who's part of my community, and if you're not, please run over and join Extraordinary Women Influencers on Facebook, my community over there. It's just incredible. But
The
those
link will be in the chat. The link will be in the chat in the description after
yes.
the fact.
Okay. See, even now she's helping me. See, Shanee has been my coach and mentor in this whole thing. And me getting on, I'm celebrating this in particular with Women's History Month. Doing these lives now, I've been doing them for 6, 8 months now and thoroughly enjoying them. But you had to practice. I had to practice, had to step out there. And I think that's one of the things that you're saying. Often we as leaders don't recognize all of the jewels and assets and gems we already have inside of us. And so as we're thinking about a personal brand, because remember that personal brand is your story. So you want to tell your story. So the question is, how do you tell it? And what Shanee is advising us on and dropping them gems is you tell it through a video, be it recorded or live, and by writing and expressing yourself. So thank you for those. I want to take this quick question before I know we're winding down, but I think this is a great question here. Elaine is saying sometimes she doesn't have anything to say. Is it okay to post or quote someone else's words or share something interesting to be heard? What do you say on that, Shanee?
That's a great question. I'll answer that. And before I do, Dr. Geneva,
Yes.
I mean, just seeing your evolution over the last, 8-9 months has been amazing. And you've gotten to a point in your business where now you're going to have a waiting list soon. And the whole point is that I've seen you like stand in your power more and more. And when that is the authenticity, right? When you leverage your skills, your strengths, and you put in the work, that you're rewarded by the business coming to you, higher quality business coming to you. The big people in your network that may have not closed deals with you prior reached out. Now you're in front of them all the time. And I think that that's something that if you're a woman who is a leader, you probably have a high quality network. If you're just seen more by the people you already know, a ton of opportunity can come to you.
Absolutely.
And what is 12 months in perpetuity of really getting that momentum and that ramp up? It's not that much, and you love it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to, okay. And then going back to that other, Elaine Robinson's question is, I think that going back to what I originally said, focusing on your audience. So try to listen, even if it's a coworker at work that asks you a question. Specifically, I don't know if you own a business, but if you have a client, one of the easiest things that someone can do is just write a list of 30 questions that they have been frequently asked by clients or recently asked by clients, or even a best friend, because maybe they go to you for that type of advice, which is not a coincidence. And just answer one question a day. When this is also something that's not really understood, is that our brains work in questions. So when someone calls you, God forbid, for an emergency, we don't start preaching. We just say, "Where are you?" Right? Or when you enter a room for a networking event and you're looking for someone, you're usually like, "I wonder where's my friend?" Right? What are they doing? Could they be over here? And so answering questions is very natural for us, which is why it's a great place to start.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'd also like to just do a PS to that, because Elaine suggests that, she doesn't have anything to say. And I'm going to challenge that. That's the piece that I want to challenge, because I doubt that seriously. And Elaine, I happen to know, but you hear that from other women. Well, I don't really have anything to say. That's not true. You do. And you probably say a lot of things, perhaps in different venues. When it comes, however, to saying what's on your mind in front of others in a very public way, then
Mhm.
sometimes that can get a little scary.
Mhm.
Okay. But sometimes that practicing yourself or taking that phone, excuse me, and as Shanee was saying, recording a video or sitting down, like Shanee suggested, and writing 2 or 3 things that are on your mind, and then go on and post it. Why not? Try it, see what happens, and then go on and continue to do your thing and live your life. Well, as we are concluding, I can't stop this conversation, Shanee, without asking you about your mark, your
Mhm.
legacy that you're hoping to leave, that your personal brand will, what is it that will continue, how you'll contribute, how, you'll leave your mark on the world. What is it for you?
I think that it's getting people to bet on themselves more often, and to have the courage to do so just over and over again. I think that when people come to Growth Academy, we truly are a launch pad. And, it may start with LinkedIn, but as you know, Dr. Geneva, there's so many intangibles along the way,
Yes.
such as even just getting the confidence to start, or, uh, you know, knowing how to approach things. Like, now I need a waiting list. What happens now? Do I accept this? I have a client that for the first time ever, she just rejected a free speaking engagement because now she's too in demand. And I'm, you know, now she has to charge. And so those things, and she felt guilty for doing that. But it's also not fair to her to always have to do these things for free. Uh,
Yes.
and so I think that helping people really achieve their small business dreams on their terms is what I would like to achieve.
Well, I know you're going to be successful in that because you're already doing it.
Yeah.
And so I am just so delighted as I think about the legacy that I want to leave. It is to empower people to lead,
Hmm.
to have greater impact so that they can better themselves in the world.
Hmm.
And as I think about the kinds of things that, then you kind of step back and say, okay, if that's the vision, if that's what you want to leave, roll that on back. And what are you doing on a day to day basis?
Hmm.
And so perhaps that's one of the ways to conclude this conversation is that um, what we do every day helps build our legacy. And as we're doing it, being real clear on our values, but not overthinking it,
Hmm.
going on out there, trying it, doing it. Your insights about um, uh, having a strategy and, being clear on that strategy, but just doing it, I think makes a difference.
Yeah,
And
I think
so,
I think that sometimes we think we need the strategy before we act, but sometimes through action that the strategy is built.
exactly. And I have been in that kind of situation all the time because one of my favorite management techniques is I'm making it up as I go. And what happens is when you sometimes have that, when, things become overwhelming or I'm in those stressful, high demand situations or I've got to react in a way, stepping back and saying, okay, well, I'm going to try this and I'm not too sure about it. Some of it I'm making it up as I go, but let's see what happens. And then after it happens, stepping back and reflecting and thinking about it and say, oh, well, this worked and that didn't. And before you know it, you got a strategy. You take the pieces that worked and made you feel good, put them together, you got a strategy.
I love it.
So,
Thank you
yes.
for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm just honored and thank all of you who have joined. And oh, I see that Essa was here. I didn't have a chance to say hello. And so many of you who are here. Of course, a lot of your fans too, Shanee. So we just want to say hello and appreciate you joining with us today. And again, if you enjoyed the conversation, if you found value, please um, follow me on LinkedIn. But the thing is, come and join our community there for your success and to elevate what what makes you tick, what you want to see in today's world. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Shanee.
You're welcome.